welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on the planet. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can create an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to the journey. She's someone I've had the joy and pleasure of chatting with a number of times over the last few months, and I'm now excited to have her on the show. Miss Karen Roberts, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this. Yes, we've been connected fairly recently, but yeah, we've had a few conversations. So thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
You got it. I'm going to jump right in. I want to hear a crazy sales story. Give me something good. I know you got one.
A crazy sales story. I suppose for me, look, I don't come from a sales background at all. And I spent a quarter of a century in the fitness industry. I own my own fitness studio. So I'm used to being on stage, yes, instructing, maybe correcting technique, but mainly motivating and inspiring people. And so, I thought it would be the same with sales is the idea is that you've got to motivate them to take action, right? But it doesn't necessarily work like that, as I found. So, because, somebody comes into a sales call, right? They're in a slight state of fear, a little bit anxious because they don't want to be sold to. And I suppose it's our job as salespeople to try and move them along to where they're completely confident or certain that you have the right fit for them. But trying to be too motivational puts people off, which is what I found, right? Because that just installs more fear. So the idea actually is to be a little less passionate about it in the beginning, because you need to move them to what I call neutrality. You need to move them to neutral, and you do that through asking questions. And I'm used to talking a lot, right? So I have to zip it, ask more questions, and not be afraid of that silence. And I think when I first started, I didn't have the confidence in that. So, I was afraid of that pause. So I felt I needed to fill it. But when I got it, I got it. And then it's actually really, really easy. And for me, it was really easy to sell other people's programs. And then when I started to sell my own, that's when more anxiety came in, right? But when I got this right and I had my first sort of what I'd call a big sale, not massive, but about $8,000 sale, all of a sudden it's like, right. And when you get it, yeah, you're not going to get it right every single time, but it's just so much easier when you just shut up.
Now, there's a couple pieces of that I want to dig into because I really love this. Isn't it interesting how someone will put their information in a form online or walk into a studio or a business or whatever, and they'll say, hey, I have this problem and I need help. And as a professional, as someone who's a servant, who's there to help, and, sales is a part of that service aspect, I always like to say, because there's people that don't like being salesy. It's part of serving. But isn't it interesting, though, how someone will do those things? They'll walk in, they'll fill out a form, and your level of confidence will determine their ability to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, you being too confident can come across salesy and can turn people off. And I find that to be so interesting. And it's one of the things that I love about sales is it's very deeply rooted in communication.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, someone who was used to being in the fitness industry, I mean, what was the decision? Like, what really made you decide to get out of that and go into sales? Like, what prompted that move?
Full transparency, age. I wasn't getting any younger. And I think I was teaching, I don't know, something about 18 classes a week. It was crazy. I had to get up into the city of London first thing in the morning. I was just thinking, how much longer can I do this? Very physically demanding. What next? And I wanted to be the next obvious, for me, the next obvious step would be motivational speaking. And I wanted to do that, but I didn't have a program. What did I know about any of this, right? This is back in 2016. And then I came across, it was an online high ticket affiliate program. And I thought, wow, brilliant. I don't even have to create the thing, right? Somebody's created it for me. I can sell this. And I was actually invited to be on the team as a coach just through a conversation I had with one of the sales team. He said, would you like to join my team? So it was completely new to me. But the idea that I could do it from home, work from home, could have that laptop lifestyle, that's really what the driving force was, and get out of that trading time for money, because that's really what I'd had. Even when I had my own fitness studio, really, it was a bad business model because the business had been built around me. So great for the ego, not so good for the lifestyle, because I couldn't take any time off. So it was just sort of reevaluating, what can I do next? And at the end of the day, sales is the quickest way to build wealth in my book. I mean, I know there's other things like real estate, and there are other stuff, but if you get this right, you'll never really go without.
I am so stoked that you said that, because that is one of the reasons that I created this show, because there's so many people who are out there right now that are in a position where they feel stuck. Either they are the bottleneck in their own business and like they can't get out of it because they're the only one that knows how to swing the hammer or to run the class or to do the thing, or they've been in a position so long that there's a level of comfort there, and it's like, hey,
Uh-huh.
I could leave, but I've got the salary, I've got the benefits, and I got to give up 50, 60 hours a week for them, but I got my paycheck every 2 weeks. And listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. However, life will be life, and it always finds a way to do what life does and throw curveballs. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're ever in a situation where you're put against the wall, sales is an opportunity to truly, truly change your life and to create massive amounts of opportunity. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Is it going to require a lot of hard work? 100%. But anyone from any background and any personality type can be successful in this world if you're willing to put in the effort. And Karen, I've again had the pleasure of getting to know you and see you work over a few months, and understanding how you had mentioned something, and I want to touch on this because I find this is very interesting too, that when you get into sales, it's easier to sell someone else's product or services than to start selling your own. And I think, and I would love your opinion on this, there it goes back to that fear and the confidence, the same thing that the prospect has when they show up on the call of, is this person actually going to deliver what they're promising me and what they're selling me? And then when you get put into the position of now selling your own products and services, I believe there is a question in our own mind of, hey, if I sell this person a $5,000 package, a $10,000 package, am I actually going to deliver enough value that they're going to think it was worth the $5, 10, $20,000? What do you think?
100%. When I started I started podcasting back in 2020, 21. And I started actually in radio. I was offered a radio show. And then
Hmm.
about 2 years in, the owner of the radio station said, look, at the end of your contract, I'm giving it up. Do you want it? And I just went, yeah. I thought, brilliant. Right. I can offer other coaches a platform. And then that turned into, well, if I'm going to do the radio, because that's, once and gone, I may as well start a podcast network, right? Me saying yes to too many things. Over time, I realized I was spreading myself too thin. So I gave up the radio and focused on the podcasting. But because of my own mindset, and maybe because I wanted to show up and serve and help people who were struggling, I was definitely pricing my services too low, and I
Mm.
wasn't giving enough value. And I would say about another year in, I had people dropping out, because you and me know not many people continue with podcasting. They don't give it long enough. And I can remember being sat on my computer and ding, notification went, an email from a client saying she's not going to continue. And I was like, oh, man, if this continues, I'm going to be bankrupt by the end of the year. And so I had to really go back and think, well, why is everybody dropping out? Or why am I continuing? What am I doing differently? And so I realized I needed to offer them more, because at the end of the day, hands up, I was naive to think that just because I was doing it, that they were going to do the same without any direction. So we had to really completely repackage everything and give them a little bit more of a strategy and a format. And, I'm sure you know this, everyone thinks it's easy starting a podcast, just talking to a mic and then upload it to Apple, build it and they will come. So then we realized that maybe if they're not going to do all the things that they need to do, well, maybe we can do more of a done for you package. But again, of course, that's going to increase the price, right? And so again, that goes down to, it was definitely my mindset that needed to be adjusted to think, right, who's going to pay for, who's going to pay that for this? And until you get over that mindset issue, I know I'm providing value. I know I'm giving everything that they need to succeed. Yes, they got to pay the price. And once I got over that fact, yes, things started moving. But yeah, definitely, I found it easier in the beginning because it wasn't down to me, right? All I was doing was the sales. There you go, passing the buck, if you like. Whereas now, well, we've got to deal with fulfillment as well. But with that comes a little bit more of accountability. When you're working for yourself, right, and it's just you, it can be, some of us, maybe not everybody, but I know this includes me. When I've got no accountability, we can get a little bit complacent, whereas all of a sudden, well, I can't. You can't get complacent because I've got this accountability, because it's not just me, it's now the client. We've got to provide all this stuff for them. So there's lots of moving parts there. And like you say, it is down to this fear of, well, I'm not just selling a course, right? Done and sold and forget about it. This is ongoing, showing up, providing the service, dealing with fulfillment and working to the best of your ability. So yeah, it is definitely interesting, and I've seen both sides to it. But yeah, you've got to have faith in yourself, and also I think another big one for me is, and I've heard it over the years so many times, of being detached from the outcome. And when you're starting out, that can be difficult because you need to make a certain amount of money to keep going, right? So when you get on a sales call, that being detached from the outcome in the beginning can be a little bit difficult, and you can push the sale away. But when you get that, magic happens.
You have touched on so many things that I want to dive into. And Karen, thank you. You just shared some stuff with the audience that I really hope, if you're here listening to this and you didn't catch it all, like, go back and listen to that last couple of minutes again and again and again. The first thing you said that I really loved, you were expecting everyone else to work the way that you work. And I wish I had like a buzzer, and maybe I'll try to get the production team to go back and do like the burr, 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 and like cut it in. This has been one of the biggest realizations for me as a coach, as a leader, as a consultant, as a husband, father, like in all areas of life. You cannot expect you out of other people. And I don't know who originally said that quote, so like shout out. I'm going to have to pull it and make sure that I give them credit, because I don't know who said it, but like, you cannot expect you out of other people. And when you start your business, especially those of you who are getting into the coaching space or the online space, just because you're showing up and being willing to learn how to edit videos and to add overlays and transitions, and then how to put it up on these platforms that syndicate it. Just because you're willing to do that doesn't mean everybody else is. And often you're starting to sell your services or your product at a price that's too low because you think everybody's going to be willing to do those things. So you're like, well, shoot it. All you got to do is just go do this and then this and then this. And like, it's not that difficult. So why would I charge them that much? Because it's not that hard. You're operating on assumed knowledge because you spent the time, energy, and effort to learn those skills. You've invested something drastic, probably money, especially time. And so, what Karen said, and I love this, is the moment you had that realization of, hey, these people aren't going to do all these things, which is why they're now dropping off, because all of these things are important to the end result. So, what if we just started making sure those things got done and charged them a little more? They're probably going to stick around a little longer. This is the kind of thinking that truly keeps you in the game. It's not easy. Sales and entrepreneurship is like a roller coaster and a half that you have no. It's like you're on we're in a blindfold too, because you don't even know when the hills are coming. Even though you feel like, okay, I should be going up, it's just like, wait, we're going backwards now. What the heck is going on? And so I really appreciate how you broke down into you were undervaluing yourself first. And then B, when you started to even then still seeing clients drop off, realize that time and energy and effort are the most valuable pieces to that. People have money. And if the people you're talking to don't have money, there are other people that probably do have money that would want to talk to you. But you're not putting yourself in those conversations because of the way that you're seeing the end product and result. So, Karen, as someone who has done well over, I want to be conservative, but like well over 1,500 to 2,000 podcasts in my life, I know that the do not quit rule for podcasting should be like number one of all things. Like, I know it's sound and all that first, but like, do not quit should be number one. How do you now continue to work with people on the mindset side of not quitting when they're not seeing the massive number of listeners like a Joe Rogan or somebody?
Well, you've just said something there that this is exactly the problem. People come into this industry and they're worried about the wrong things, all right? If people say, oh, well, I'm going to wait. I want to set up this studio and do this and that. And you're like, man, you're focusing on the wrong things. If because you're watching Joe Rogan and that setup, you're not there yet. Let's focus back on building your listener base and actually showing up to provide value first. You don't need all these complicated things. As long as you've got a fairly decent mic, I didn't start out with this mic, that came. You don't need much to start. In the beginning, it's about showing up and serving, getting the value right, getting your whole format and strategy right. What type of guest do you want to? Why are we even doing it in the first place? What are you trying to achieve? Because different podcasts have different. What are you looking to get out of it? And the fact that, look, be real. It is. Well, when done right, yes, you can get short-term results when you set it up right. Hey, I didn't. When I started, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just showing up. I was just doing it, right? I learned along the way. And so now it's a lot easier to help people start in the right place. But even then, it is a long-term strategy. The way I see it is the reason why podcasters are the most trusted content creators out there is because we show up every single week. And we've proven that. And you've got your track record and people can go back and look. Anybody can post stuff on social media whenever they want, but there's not really any real evidence that they stay the duration. Whereas having a podcast, yes, you've built on the know, like, and trust factor because you have, no matter what's going on in your life, you are showing up week in, week out. And that goes a long way. So it is, keeping it real. You're not going to get the kind of numbers that Joe Rogan or Stephen Bartlett are going to get. And all those numbers in the beginning, it's just ego. Get rid of it. It doesn't matter. If it's set up right and it's aimed at your specific audience, then you can have a successful podcast with 50 listeners every week. It's we've got to come away from this numbers thing. Everybody's so obsessed with that. What I found is just because my shorts don't really get a lot of, they're not going viral. I don't get a lot of likes and comments, but people are listening. People are listening because you can look at your stats. So get over it. Forget about all that and just show up and serve. And the longer then you've been doing it, for me, I found that it's almost like in the beginning, I remember thinking, this just isn't working. It doesn't seem to be growing. And then all of a sudden you hit a sort of level and all of a sudden it's just exponential growth. It's almost like, I don't know, do we know what the algorithm for Apple and Spotify, who knows? But maybe part of it is something about, are you going to last? For one, right? Once you've been there for a while and you have been consistent, I don't know, maybe it's showing you to more people. Who knows? But just through personal experience, that is what happened for me. It was just so slow. And then, boom, it took huge growth. The last couple of years have just gone shoom. So it is if you're in business, you're in it for the duration. Stop worrying about it in the beginning. Just show up, because then over time you've built that library of content, if you like. And when people do find you, you've got that backlog and there's instant trust, if that makes sense.
It does. And I want to piggyback on this because I have had this conversation with countless entrepreneurs and business owners over the years. Hey, should I start a podcast? Hey, should I write a book? Well, I don't know. Let's ask some questions, right? Let's figure out if this makes sense. Just like I would in sales, let's pre-qualify the business. Does this even make sense? And to me, my belief is either you're writing the book, starting the podcast, whichever, right? This is an authority play in my opinion, but who are you writing it for and why? Start there. Like, who's your audience and why are they going to care that this book even exists? And then once you've gotten that, it's all right. Like, okay, well, what's going to be in the book? What's the big overarching message? What's the purpose of this thing? And then from there, okay, well, how are they going to listen to it? Are you going to focus on one channel? Are you going to be multifaceted and try to be on YouTube, Spotify, all these different places? That all matters, because I promise you, the more you try to do all at once, the less likely you are to keep doing it. So who are we speaking to and why? What's the conversation and the purpose going to be for the book? And ultimately, like Karen said, I think the biggest thing is what's going to happen when they're done listening? Where do they go from there? Are you just going to create this content just for the sake of creating it? Or are you creating it so that people can get to know, like, and trust you? And then on the end, they can decide, hey, I'd like to go and buy this person's book. Maybe I want to learn more about their course. Maybe I want to learn how to start my own podcast. Now that I've heard this story, like, great, I'm at a point where I'm tired of working myself to the bone and I want to get into a new industry and do something different with my life. And hey, I got some fun stories to tell over the years and some things that I can share and motivate with people. Awesome. That's why people like Karen exist, because you don't know what you don't know until you know. But the whole point of this is, if you're going to do these things, have a simple plan and then stick to the plan. I have been making podcast content since 2019. I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on production and equipment and all sorts of different pieces. I've never gone viral. I've never had any sort of crazy, like, super fame from any of my podcasts or content. But what I do is I stay consistent. And every week when I'm calling my damn leads and I'm having conversations with people, hey, I heard that podcast. And I already know that someone's going to say, hey, I heard you talk to Karen about podcasting and I want to start one. What do you think? And I'm going to be like, hey, did you get to the end of the episode where I mentioned, like, this whole plan? What has happened though is it has built an authority. People know that I show up. They know my voice. If they're watching on video, they can put a voice face to the name and the conversation, and that relationship is now 2 to 3 notches higher, so that if and when they are ready to do business with me, the content that they heard in the podcast is what's allowed them to say, "Hey, take my card. Like, let's go. I'm good. What do we do next?" So, Karen, I know we could nerd out on this like all day, and we could have so much fun chatting about sales and podcasting and all of that. But if someone's been here and they've been listening and they want to start a show, I want them to go talk to you because I know you can help at least get them started. So, like, what's the best way for them to come and find you?
Well, I do have a freebie. It's a short video series, a sort of that will give you ideas. And, it's the first thing to get started on, how and why should you even have a podcast? So that, I suppose that's the simplest thing. That's at podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free, which is the same name as, or if you just want to go and listen to the podcast, it's the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. That's probably the simplest thing. And then from there, you can find me on anywhere.
You understand the game. You know how to be on all the platforms, be multifaceted, and you create an amazing show. And I've had the pleasure of being a guest and getting to listen to some of the shows. So if you guys are here, make sure you go check out Podcast Profits Unleashed. I'll make sure we put all the links and everything in the show notes. Now, Karen, before we get out of here, you've been an amazing guest, and I'm truly grateful for your time and the wisdom that you've shared. But the thing that I really love about sales is that there's always someone new showing up into the world. And one of the awesome things about podcasts like this is, as someone who's trying to learn, I might go online and type in, how do I get better at sales? And they may land on this podcast episode. And how lucky would we be if they are? And if that's someone who's here today listening, and they're just getting started in sales, and you could give them just one piece of advice on how to be successful, what would you tell them?
Oh, shut up. No. No, it's about, rather than trying to push your product or service or whatever it is, listen. Ask the right questions. The more questions, the more things and not just surface level questions. Do not be afraid to go in deeper. Go deep, get to the root cause as to why. It's not all about painting that picture of their goals and where they'd love to be. Get the real reason. What things are holding them back? Why haven't they taken that step in the past? What has been stopping them? What would their life look like in a year's time? Don't be afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions rather than just you trying to sell your product. The more information that you get, the easier it is to almost sort of describe your product in a way that makes them come to the conclusion themselves that you are the right fit for them. And if you do that correctly, you don't have to even sell. They will ask for what it is you have.
I knew you were going to drop some gems on us here. And Karen, as always, it is an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you. I can't thank you enough for your time. I want to be respectful of it, so we got to close this thing out. Listen, if you guys are here and you enjoyed the show, make sure you go follow Karen. Make sure you check out Podcast Profits Unleashed. We'll drop all the links down there below. And then, as always, you know the show is sponsored by Call the Damn Leads. And if you've got a story to tell about sales, I want you to be on the show. Head over to the website, callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your information. Tell us your story. Let's get you scheduled in. While you're there, grab a book, grab some swag, whatever, share it with your team. But the most important thing that you can do at the end of this is send this episode to a friend, a colleague, a coworker, someone that you care about who you know wants to get better. Because at the end of the day, Karen and I are both here spending our time to help you call the damn leads. We'll see you guys on the next one.